Friends, this is Freedom Express. I am V.K. Tripathi. I used to teach physics in IIT Delhi. I retired in 2013, and then onwards I have been moving around and meeting people, looking at their economic and educational conditions. Freedom Express has started a series, Quest for Freedom. Actually, the 1776 we consider to be a defining year in human history. That was the year when two major things happened. Number one, James Watt came up with an advanced version of steam engine that initiated the process of modern industrialization in the world. And the second was the same year, in 1776, United States gained independence from Britain. So there was a quest, there was an urge for freedom all over, and science had given an impetus or a hope to people that science can liberate people from drudgery of muscle hard work. It can wipe out hunger, it can wipe out disease, and probably it can help people gain independence. However, the impact of science on third world countries has not been as much generous for at least 150 years since that time. Today we are going to discuss the impact of modernization or modern technology or modern industry on Indian textiles. We have Professor S.M. Ishtiaq, who has been a renowned professor of textile engineering in IIT Delhi. He is originally from Urei, UP. He studied in Kanpur. Then he did his PhD from Czechoslovakia. And then he moved to IIT Delhi. He joined IIT faculty in 1985. And he served the institute in various positions, including Dean, as well as Deputy Director of IIT Delhi. Then he also served in renowned institutes as the director. There's an institute in Ghaziabad, which is called Northern India Textiles Research Association. He was director from 1997 to 2000. He was also director of International Institute of Technology Research Academy, Mauritius, during 2014 and 15. He is still very active in research as well as in teaching, and I would request him to give some feeling for the history of textiles in India prior to British, and then in his second talk we would expect him to cover the British period and the modern period. So we are very privileged to have Professor Ishtiaq. He has been a leading figure in textile engineering as well as a teacher who influences the thinking of new generation. So he has been a very legendary figure in our institute, and I am very pleased that he is with us today. So I would request Professor Ishtiaq to tell us about the status of textile technology or indigenous industry in India prior to the arrival of British in 1757. Professor Ishtiaq.
You see, this textile industry, once we talk, textile industry is the mother of all other industries. If you see the history of Indian industry, so textile has played a very major role in Indian economics in the past as well as today. And as I said, that it is a mother of all industries. If you just take any industrialist, they started their career with the textile industry. Now the textile, if you take, it is really a very dynamic industry, I would say. This is the industry, if we say that if you talk about how this industry has developed, first that this textile made the people this more cultured, civilized. So this textile has played an important role. Later this textile help the people to be smarter. Then textile started talking about this comfort aspect, and today if we say this textile is talking about medical health of the people, so life of the people. So that's it becomes this life of Indian economics. From that angle that the textile plays an important role. At the same time, another important issue with textile is the textile products, since birth to death, textile is there. The day anybody born, the first product wears, that is textile. Then the day that person dies, that is textile. So textile from birth to death, there is attachment. So that's why that it becomes an important this industry, and the product of that becomes important for citizens of the country. Now take this textile. Textile has taken a lot of this ups and downs. So here, as the party has put the agenda that I will talk about in today's talk about the textile during this Mughal period. What was the status of textile, how textile changes, how the textile was adopted, what is the status that time, and I will compare what is today, and rest of course, as we say, this is the first part, and second part that I will talk what was the status of textile during British period and today's stage. Now talk about the period of Mughal. Definitely this textile has taken a very leading role during Mughal period. Of course, a lot of industrialization was there, but textile was the focus, and particularly it started during the period of Akbar. And that period that we say this 1956, 1605, during this period the textile has taken a very big shape. Now before we say this Mughal court, they have given a lot of importance to textile, extraordinary important. But in India, the textile was already, if a cotton we say it was from the Roman times. It is not the textile started from this Mughal period. Silk weaving, it was well established in northern India, that even before Mughals. So it was already there. Indians were all the master of printing, this dyeing cotton, and that was also during Mughal period. But this Mughal dynasty gave an this boost to this textile industry, because they found that this is the industry will give a lot of employment to the people, and it is need of everybody. So that's why that they thought of that to give this importance. We say this. I was just going through this some literature. So I found that this Abul Fazl, he was the minister and biographer during this Akbar period in Anai Akbari, which was completed in 1590. He also gave give detail about the evolution of textile industry during this Mughal period, and I will quote few of the things from his your literature. If we say this India, during the Mughal period, hardly a city you will find where the textile manufacturing was not taking place. And at that time itself, they were producing more than 130 different varieties of textiles. So that way, this clearly indicates that how much this textile got this importance. And very good part which I found that during this period, a lot of innovation has been also done to help the textile, to promote the textile, to produce more textile. The charkha, it was invented during this period. This horizontal loom, they invented. That your draw loom, this silk twisting, this implements, ribbon loom, this for this small width fabric if you want to make, the vertical looms for carpet, and new dyeing these ingredients, which we call natural dyes. It was started during that period. So if you see from this innovation point of view, then definitely this textile has played a very important role. A lot of development is being done to how to enhance the production and productivity of textile. So,
carpet was also.
Carpet loom was also during this period.
I see, I see. So even Kashmir.
I will come to that point where that Kashmir has played a very important role during this Mughal period, and it was a hub for wool and silk industry during this Mughal period.
I see.
So I will just talk about that issue. So now that you see, if we take into this consideration this development, now of course what they did, they decided to divide this textile into four major categories. That was cotton, silk, wool, and that mixed material. So that three type of raw material that they used, and where that cotton was more popular, and niche products were out of silk and wool. And the literature very clearly indicates that Akbar has a lot of inclination liking towards silk and wool. So he gave a lot of emphasis to wool industry and silk industry, and that was a niche product at that time. And of course, that time this Gujarat, during this period, the cotton and silk, the Gujarat was known during that period. A lot of activities that were being done in Gujarat, and the cotton products were known in Gujarat. So that way, if you see the history of Gujarat, Gujarat was always in that way leading in textile industry. And of course, as I said, Akbar favored this woolen garments. That was his liking, and he preferred this Sufi style of garment.
I see.
That was his. If you see this, the type of fabric what this Akbar used to wear even after that Shah Jahan also, it has impact of a Sufi system.
I see, I see.
And this style was totally from that it has, I would say, borrowed from Sufi. And he, of course, another aspect that he took that in shawl, and where that Kashmir starts coming into picture. In shawl, that one of the thing that he find that how to develop this different type of dyes, natural dyes, which today we are talking. Natural dyes that of course existing for a good number of years, even I would say before Mughals also. But they used in different ways, different type of dyes they developed. And at the same time that they started increasing the width of the loom. Because that time the width of the loom what they were having, because you were not able to produce this wider width loom.
I see.
But of course it was hand loom, but they thought of increasing the width of the fabric so that this utility of the fabric that will enhance, that will increase. So that was their objective. So that was also during this period it was carried out. And then this shawl industry during this Akbar period, because the literature says that that he brought some experts from this Turkestan, and they taught how to produce this shawls and all in Kashmir. So they were just some experts, that Muslim experts came from Turkestan, and they were involved in this development. Of course, if we see this another industry which Akbar has a lot of interest and gave a lot of emphasis, that is your silk. But these were the niche product. So and silk was very close to his heart and his liking. And then silk that received that time this lot of interest during production, encourage a foreign that he invite again the people. And that was another aspect which you will find wherever that he found that these experts are not available. He always invited the people from different countries. So that to enhance the this capacity, capability, skill among the people.
During that period, people from Iran also came?
The Iran came, but he had lot from this period, this Turkestan, because from Turkey. So a lot of that people that, because this, you will find in textile, a lot of this emphasis is from Turkish fabric. So that he brought a lot of people from Turkey also. So there again that you see during even that period, I would say that here the Mughals have this thought of this trademark. We are talking today trademark. They thought of that time, and they used to divide their fabric in different names, like this Abe Rawan, this flower, flowing water, Abe Rawan, flowing water. Another was Tanzeb, body beauty. So this was the name of the fabric that so trademarking. So it means that it is not that we are talking today. This trademark started also during that period. Another was this Meghwana. Meghwan means cloud. Megha. Megh. This was the cloud over the forest, or just dark forest. So like that, even this they thought of how to bring their product into the market. So that's why this they gave a different this trademark they were using, and they were selling this product during this period. So here that you see this again the way that they thought of, they divide this industry into two type of major products. One was luxury product, niche product, and another was for general public. And niche product were for more of this for emperors and their families, or those were able to afford this more money, and they can dictate their choices. So that type this software they divided initially, and later I will come that this had some disadvantage which they realized it even during Mughal period itself. So luxury items that they used to say golden and silver bread, and this is another that time they were having this metal yarn.
Metal yarn?
Gold, yeah, yarn made of gold. There's a different type of metals.
Very thin wire.
Yes.
Of gold.
Gold. So that in their fabric that you will find if you go to different museums, you will find that this pure gold threads are there. Zari, what we normally call. Yes, you are right.
So this process grew at the time of British.
I would not say that, but they widely use that.
I see.
And that's why that they were able to produce more value-added product out of these material. Again, this was there, this shawls and silks. Then they started producing very fine type of fabric, this muslin and all, muslin. Very fine fabric of low GSM. So
that's cotton?
Cotton, 100% cotton.
I see.
So that was also that during, then they have again this, they started brush painting. Of course, later there is a block painting come into textile. But they were just brush, just like a normal artist, that they were putting painting on over the fabric, which was very niche product during that period. But for for general public, they had of course this because they just to serve the people and all, so they planned in that way that so they should produce this your cheap quality of fabric where the cost is lesser, coarse material and all, so that they can feed to majority of people, so that they can also use. So it means that the interest of both this your community has been taken into consideration and then divided into different this your area. And further that the way that they divided their industrialization, one was this artisans were there. They were buying their yarn, making fabric, selling it. So this was some sort of private concept. Another was that they used this word karkhana. This karkhana, this will state-owned industry, where that the government was supplying all material and employing the people, and they were producing the textile as per their requirements. So it means even industrialization, you say private manufacturing concept was already existing during this period. So like this, and Karkhana were state-owned, and in Karkhana, of course, they have a concept that they started in different places like Kashmir, Lahore, Agra, Ahmedabad, Fatehpur, there's Burhanpur, all these areas that they established a good number of textile karkhana. And the concept of research, what we today we say that what you have mentioned, this Ahmedabad Textile Industry Research and Textile, they had this concept of research, they used to call workshop.
I see.
And they established these workshops where that they used to train the people, educate the people, or make them skilled so that they can produce a right quality, right type of product. And they had the places like this Lahore, Agra, Fatehpur Sikri, Ahmedabad. These places they had, they used to call this a workshop. So sort of it, you can call them training center, which today we call like viewing center in India that we have. So that time this type of this workshops they had, and there that they used to invite the people so that they can trained for different type of product. So here that this karkhana that what this of course this he borrowed from Turkey, this concept. This so this karkhana concept, a workshop concept, that came from Turkey because it looks like it was already existing there. So that they invited the people from Turkey, and they started opening these workshops and all to train the people and others.
And in those karkhanas, mostly the people were indigenous, but there were experts from outside also.
Experts that they invited for special type of work and training. Because textile is definitely, weaving is very skilled type of work. So there that they just invited even garmenting in that area. So that this you're from two major places. One is Turkestan and another is Turkey. These two places that it is established in literature. So a lot of people.
One is Turkey, the other one.
And Turkestan.
Turkestan is a different country.
Different, yeah. This is near Russia.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So this is another this. And now here that you see in this karkhana, they used to make niche type of product. As I said already that it was for mainly for this people, those were having a good income and all, and people from royal families. So they were able to. So that the main objective was to produce this product for their choice. So it used to be some sort of a tailor-made products. So the different people have different choices, so that they will be able to establish their choices in their product. So now here that you see this concept of karkhana had certain issues. What happened the moment that this Mughal period they started declining, karkhana got stopped.
I see.
And that's why I always say कि राजा कभी व्यापार नहीं, राजा को कभी व्यापार नहीं करना चाहिए. राजा का काम है लॉ एंड ऑर्डर, एजुकेशन, हेल्थ, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, उसको वो देखना चाहिए. वही चीज़ अगर आप देखें हमारे यहाँ भी हुई कि आज जितने भी गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस धीरे धीरे बंद हो गए और बंद हो रहे हैं. पर्टिकुलरली मैं टेक्सटाइल में कहूँ कि एनटीसी, नेशनल टेक्सटाइल कॉरपोरेशन इशू आप देखें, बहुत से स्टेट्स में स्टेट टेक्सटाइल कॉरपोरेशन आई, a good infrastructure, good money was spent, and all are closed. So that's why I always say.
After 1969 or?
In different period, if you take the this case of UP, so they started somewhere 72, 73, and by this 2000, 2005, all were closed. So this is very unfortunate. So that's why I'll say, because राजा को कभी व्यापार नहीं करना चाहिए. गवर्नमेंट शुड बी अवे फ्रॉम बिजनेस. वो अपना सिर्फ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर देखे, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर देखे, हेल्थ देखे, एजुकेशन देखें. सो दीज आर द एरियाज दैट दे शुड कंसंट्रेट एंड फोकस. अदरवाइज एंड अनदर थिंग इज द रीजन इज व्हाई दैट द गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस आर नॉट एबल टू रन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, बिकॉज वी डोंट नो, द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर दे डोंट नो हाउ टू टेक द वर्क. इफ प्राइवेट इंडस्ट्री कैन टेक द वर्क, why these government organizations are not able to take the work? That the government has to answer. Why that they are not able to take the work? Same work industry is able to take. Same people are there. Why? And that is a big question that we have to answer if we have to run the industry in better way. Number of places in you see contract system is coming, because the worker of a contractor will do the job, but we as a government organization, we are not able to take the work. And this is a major issue. Of course, I don't want to divert this talk in different. Now here that you see a typical, very good example that I will give you, that during that I will just give the comparison of different products made in India during this Mughal period and abroad, this imported, and the cost. And there you see this a typical, I will have just taken a few examples. This brocaded velvet from Europe per piece, it used to be 10 to 70 gold mohar. That time the gold mohar was the currency. And same thing made in Gujarat, it used to be 10 to 50 gold. 10 to 50 gold mohar.
And that there was 70.
70.
I see.
Another product, this velvet from Lahore per piece was 10 to 40, and from Barash, that is from somewhere in Iran, 3 to 70. Then another product, this velvet from Europe, that is 1 to 4 mohar, and from Mashhad, Iran, that is your 2 to 4. But from Lahore it is 2 to 4 and Gujarat 1 to 2. So that way it means that time, that type of product that we were able to produce, that the cost, it was cheaper in comparison to imported one.
But Lahore was a part of India.
At that time, Lahore was part of India, because I am covering that period. So Lahore definitely was a part of India.
It was a difference of factor of 2 between
Yes.
Gujarat and Lahore.
Of course, sometimes that you will see a quality is also an issue,
I see.
that you have to take that into consideration. So,
And when this Murshidabad and Bengal came into the front,
so it was that Bengal was this also very leading in case of silk,
I see.
and they played a very important role on this during the period of Bengal. Now here that you see this the concept, as I say, this court also that say they decided that okay, this handloom the product they divided into 5 categories, and that time you see that how many countries they were exporting. That is your white ordinary cloth produced from Sindh, Bengal, Odisha. It was being exported to South Asia. That this colored ordinary plain in texture colors, cotton dyed as well as plain. It was exported to Mozambique, Philippines, Iceland, Sumatra, Far East, and this your flowered fabric, flowered fabric and gold and silver from Banaras, Ahmedabad, Bihar. It was produced, and it used to be exported to Asia and European countries from both coast of India, and then printed used locally and also exported to Asia and European countries. And of course, this muslin it was totally exported to different countries. So that way, that time, even that this product of during the Mughal period was accepted in different countries, and they were making good money out of it. Now here that you see, I will just quote an example. I'm giving the figure of export of 1805. And 1805 was the decline, because that time the influence of British period, which I will talk in my next talk. Industrialization started in 1750 onward. So this due to industrialization, that time it was a decline. Even that period, I am quoting the figure that you see total export to British India. Of course, that time British India, this was a sort of a company. It was 225 lakhs 15,175. The Sikka rupee that time it used to be. Companies export this sold in London this during 1793-94 to 1809-10. It was 76 lakhs 75,511. Re-export from London, because that what they used to do. First they were exporting to London, and then London used to export somewhere.
at a much higher price.
Yeah, at much higher price.
I see.
And they took the advantage always, and during this Mughal, their period, of course, they had they enjoyed that, I would say, cake of this piece of piece of the cake. So here, and then exports to Danish company, it was 14 lakhs 64,844. Export to France, 49 lakhs 89,379. To Holland, 4 lakhs 29,851. That is all Nisika rupee. And to Asia, Asian countries, it was 64 lakhs 95,879. So total export was 531 lakhs 34,029. And that time, if I convert it, the figure to just simply Asia, they were exporting 12.2%. And total, that the figure I will come later, and I will compare what is the percentage in terms of your this export. Now here that you see from Bengal, because you asked for this Bengal. So during this 1799 and 1800, that I am just giving the figure of 1 year of Bengal. This export, East India Company export 47 lakhs, and the total private export, but it was to Europe. It was 83 lakhs 86,418. To Asia, 18 lakhs 40,527. To Malabar, 70 lakhs 74,253. And total export was 167 lakhs 1,199. Export to Asia 11.02% in that case. And now the figure which is now becoming very alarming for us. If you see, in the period 1811, the 57% of India export value, in terms of value, it was 57%. It was total export.
World export.
World.
So India's contribution was
57%. And out of that, this 33% was the textile.
Major share was.
So imagine that time how much export that we have. And another figure, just the last figure I will quote. In 1750, China and India together, they were exporting 57% of world manufacturing output. India and China 57% in manufacturing.
World GDP.
Yeah. And there that India, during that period, this Mughal period, this share was 25%.
India share.
Yes. And now that we say, if I give you the figure of 1900, it is 2%.
Oh, so this was a tremendous decline.
So that is this period, in fact, that if we consider this Mughal period, that this textile was doing very well and making lot of this hard currency for the country. And that is this amazing that how they are doing, how they were managing, and they realized that yes, textile is an important industry and plays an important role, so that it is helping the people, and at the same time it has helped the economy of the country during this period. So that way, I really thought of that their thought process, how that this industry has to run, how this industry can make good money, which can serve the individual also. So this is the point that I will end, but now my next lecture I will start from there, because this the period which I am quoting, that this industrialization started. And there that we become the big surfer. Why that 2%? So I will give the answer of this 2% in my next talk.
Oh, that's so kind of you. It has been very revealing presentation, and many of the things I never knew. That India was so good in textiles in the world, and India's contribution to world GDP was 25%. And India has been projected in the West as when the British came, they came for India's uplift. But I think India was already at a higher pedestal than most of the world at that time. And it's very unfortunate that the science, when it was evolving elsewhere, it was not supporting the indigenous industry in India. Rather than industry started declining. And another important thing Professor Istiaq has mentioned is that India has a very broad base, ranging from Gujarat to Kashmir to Bengal, all over in Bihar. So India had a very decentralized mode of production, obviously supported by the state also. And then besides producing fine quality clothes, there was also emphasis on providing clothes for everybody. So lower quality clothes for needs of the masses was also being produced, and we were inviting experts from Turkestan, from Turkey, and maybe Iran, and not only clothes but woolen clothes, carpets, silk. I think India was covering almost all areas of textiles during that period that ended abruptly in 1757 when India was taken over by East India Company. So wonderful having you, Daksha.
Thank you.